so yeah, I mean, to me, I felt like the timing was perfect. And it's just one of those things where, it's kind of almost how you mark your life. How like you have your birthday. Going into the Hall of Fame is one of those things where, because I didn't play in the Super Bowl, right? So that's one of those things, football wise, where it really just kind of puts a seal on the kind of career that I was able to have.
Welcome to the Green Light Podcast, presented by BetMGM. BetMGM is still the home of the second chance. Every Friday of the NBA season, BetMGM is making first field goal wagers more exciting with Second Chance. With BetMGM's Second Chance, you will get your stake back in cash if your first field goal scorer scores the second instead. Be sure to take advantage of this offer if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet. Use bonus code GREENLIGHT when you sign up.
All right, this is 9-year-old me would be very proud interviewing Barry Sanders in New Orleans for the Super Bowl. Probably my favorite, maybe my favorite player ever. Welcome to the show, Barry Sanders.
Thanks for having me, man. Great to be here.
It is awesome seeing you here, and we've met once or twice before. One of them being when I was a little kid at the Pro Bowl. That's what my dad tells me. But I was too young to remember, and I'll never forget the day he's like, well, I got you something. And he brought me a Barry Sanders jersey signed by you. So I got that in my man cave. I appreciate that.
Absolutely, man. I wasn't going to tell. How we know? Come on now.
Yeah. Well,
I looked up to him too. I looked up
did?
to Dad as well. I mean, I was a big Raiders fan.
Were you?
Oh,
really?
Man, you kidding me? Yeah.
Growing up?
Absolutely. All Raiders.
What was
All
it
Raiders.
about
John
them?
Madden?
Yeah.
Fred Biletnikoff. Cliff Branch, Dave Casper, Gene Upshaw. I mean, Jack Tatum. I mean, it just, Otis Sistrunk, John Matuzak. I mean, it just, I was just, for some reason, I think they were always on TV.
Yeah.
They was always on TV and they were winning, So you said 9 years old. For you, when I was now around that same age, that's when they were in the Super Bowl against the Vikings.
That's right.
I remember that like it was yesterday.
Yeah.
And so for some reason I wasn't, they were in the same. They're actually in the same division as the Chiefs.
Right.
I was never a Chiefs fan. I lived right down the street, or just not too far away. But anyways, I was big Raiders.
You liked it when they beat the Chiefs.
What's that?
You liked it when they came down to beat the Chiefs.
Absolutely.
Well, they used to tell my dad used to tell me about all the fights the Chiefs and the Raiders got, chasing each other in the tunnel and all that stuff. So it's a different day back then.
A lot of fists flying around that day. Yeah, absolutely.
Was there anybody when you got in the league, you talk about being a fan where you were kind of like, that's him? Like you look at him across the field and you're like, that's the guy I grew up watching. Or that's the guy I seen on TV.
When we played the Niners, and that's right before Montana went to the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Then he would have been one of those guys.
Yeah.
Montana, Lawrence Taylor.
Yeah.
Playing against him my first season was pretty intimidating. Also, there's several guys like Richard Dent.
Yeah. Yeah.
And of course Mike Singletary was on the same team. So there's several guys.
Did LT actively try to intimidate you? Did he talk to you?
He didn't have to. He didn't have to, but I remember he came up after the game, and just said good game.
Yeah.
And, they won. I mean, that was one of those few times when I was on the football field where I just felt like, man, that's just a different class of a team because it was Bill Belichick, Bill Parcells, LT and all those guys, Carl Banks and
Carson,
all those guys. Yeah.
Oh,
And I just felt like, wow, that's a different class of a group over there than what we have, so.
Bill was showing, because I'm on Inside the NFL now with Bill, and I get to see him every week, and he was showing us old tape of the Giants closing backside on run plays and the way those guys, ate up ground, LT. He used to fold on the other side of the line and run running back.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
I've seen that, yeah, absolutely.
I've never seen that in my life.
Yeah.
You talk about range, that's incredible.
and and playing against them, it was intimidating, but it certainly exciting because it was like, okay, this is the best of the best.
Yeah.
So I just felt like it was definitely an honor to be on the field with them, and you could definitely tell the difference between them and others.
So one of these years, man, I think the Lions are going to be here, and I've been pulling for them. I love Dan. Who doesn't? I think they did a fantastic. I think Brad's doing a great job, and I think the injuries caught up to him this year. But when you watch him now, do you ride the highs and lows like a fan?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I definitely feel what the fans are experiencing, and the thing about the current version of the Lions is that we're me growing up watching the game and watching how there's certain teams I feel like that dominate certain eras.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's just kind of cool to see in today's version of NFL football, the Lions name is synonymous with like Dan Campbell, and Jared Goff and NFC Championship and playoffs and more more positive
the
things.
Draft.
Absolutely.
The draft. I'm like,
absolutely, yeah. I mean, more hitting on other draft picks.
Yeah.
Things like that. So it is, but so you asked, do I ride the highs and lows? I feel like there's definitely been more highs the last few years, and also, and I feel like, the last 2 years we've been in that conversation. We've had at least an opportunity, right, to be here, to be at the Super Bowl in the big game, and you can't. I mean, the amount of injuries we had, it's just unusual.
Yeah.
But at the same time, just watching the games this year was very impressive to see how it seemed like so many of those games just looked easy.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, when I played and just normal games, it feels like, there's it's not a breeze, and I don't think it was a breeze for those guys. It just seemed like some of those games where we had maybe a lot of turnovers, and we still were able to win.
Yeah,
you don't normally win. You don't win those games.
Five picks against Houston.
Yeah, you don't normally win those games. Right? Yeah, exactly.
That's how good you are.
Yeah, you don't normally win those games. So things like that. But I'm encouraged. I'm certainly encouraged by that.
I wonder if you're sitting here all these years like, when are we going to be good? And then they finally get good, and it's a running back led team. Is that something you take some pride in when you watch?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I remember just when they brought in David Montgomery, they drafted Jahmyr Gibbs, meeting those guys. And if you rewind to 3-4 years ago, the conversation still was about, is the passing, has the running game kind of gone away?
Yeah.
It's going more of a passing oriented league. But every year, those guys have been a big part of the offense and the offensive success. It's just a great combination that they have, great relationship, and this year was no different. I mean, Jahmyr ended up with over 1,000 yards, just, making all kinds of electric plays, and Montgomery, before he got injured, just doing what he does. So yeah, I do take great pride in it, and it's great to see. And I mean, with Penei Sewell and those guys up front, I mean,
the way they get to the second level too.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, they have one of the best offensive lines, and so they're not afraid to run the football, so yeah, I love it.
I kind of wonder how you would be used any differently in today's game. Like, you watch these souped up West Coast offenses, all the motion, the way they use Gibbs out of the backfield. Do you ever look at today's game like, man, I could have even been more dangerous?
I think there is curiosity. Like, I wonder how it would fit into certain schemes. One in particular to come to mind for me was like the Niners. I see how even though over the last 10 years the conversation has been about the passing game, they've always been able to run the football.
Yeah.
They've always been able to run the football. With obviously Coach Shanahan and pretty much been the brain trust behind that. And so as a runner, that's something that's always caught my eye.
Yeah.
and all, and just like there was no such thing as RPOs,
Right.
back when I played. So I think that would certainly be interesting for me
Right.
to play in. And I think, I think it would provide more opportunities and make it even more difficult for a defense.
Yeah.
And even like, pistol formation,
Right.
if you were in a shotgun, right, then you pretty much knew that a team was going to pass the ball back
Right.
then, but now that's not the case now.
Yeah.
Right.
Lions will get
just
in
things like that.
shotgun on 3rd and 6 and run trap.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
so, so I think, it's amazing just how much more creative a lot of these offensives are, and offensive coordinators, the stuff they've come up with.
Yeah.
And yeah, we're sad to see Ben Johnson go. I don't know if that's part of the conversation we're
right. Well, I was wondering, what do you think is going to happen next? But like, I do think with that offensive line, you're always in the game.
Right. Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
If people said, "Hey, what do you expect from Ben Johnson?" I said, "Is he going to be able to bring the offensive line with him to Chicago?" You know what I mean?
Good point.
And
Good point.
I do think he did a hell of a job, but I believe in Dan. It's a culture thing, man.
Right. That's where it starts, and you've seen just how Coach Campbell has really changed the game.
Yeah.
The amount of chances he's willing to take. Right.
Unheard of back in the day, right?
He's changed the game, man. And really it just feeds on itself, right? Because now the players understand when they get in situations, it's not even a second thought.
Right.
And that does develop that culture and that confidence, right? And I think certainly adds a great benefit to the offense.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure over the last few years, a lot of times the defenses are thinking, will they go for it in this case? And the Lions are saying, no, we're definitely going for it.
And the way we feel, I promise you, was if it's 4th and 2 in plus territory, I want you to punt it.
Right.
That
right.
offense, like, please, I'm
right.
looking at the sideline like, I know we're supposed to want to make the play here, but they're just so good in those situations.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
and
so
back when you played, if it was 4th and 2 at, say, like the 42-yard line or something, are y'all just punting?
Yeah, 99% of the time, even higher than 99% of the time.
It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there was no such thing as analytics
You're right.
back then, but
right.
But yeah, so yes, in that case, again, that's how Coach Campbell has really changed the game, and you know what, coming from where the Lions were, 5-6 years ago, whatever the case may be. You understand that, yes, I mean, in order to change the conversation, you had to take great risk, right? You couldn't just necessarily do the same old thing everyone else is doing, and so they got the players to do it, and they have the belief instilled by Coach Campbell, and they've been able to execute.
Yeah, and a lot of times, even in the San Francisco game last year, the calls were the right calls. It was just execution.
Right.
And then the players back up Dan after the game and say, hey, that's what we do.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. We were talking about running back value. This is a big year for running back value. It's not just the guys in Detroit, but like Josh Jacobs moving teams, having a great year.
Yeah.
Saquon, obviously, Derrick Henry. But the guy playing this Sunday reminds me a little of you. And I mean that as a great compliment to him. Do you watch anybody today and you're like, I see a little bit of myself in him?
I mean, Saquon, he's dynamic, awesome, just playmaker.
Yeah.
I mean, he's he has, I guess, from when I've talked to him, have made the comment that he's watched some of my stuff when he was younger or whatever. It looks like whoever he's been watching it,
it's been working.
He took good notes.
Yeah, he
took very good notes.
Yeah.
And I always sometimes struggle with that question, because I feel like I watch so many great running backs coming up, that I borrowed so much from like a Tony Dorsett or Marcus Allen or whoever else, and so I feel like even Gale Sayers and guys like that, and people kind of give me the credit.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that.
Yeah.
But yes, I think I see in Saquon that kind of slippery elusiveness, speed, but power, and jump cut, and just that anticipation.
Yeah.
You know, and I also, you know, I see it in Jahmyr Gibbs, you know, and a few other guys, but certainly in Saquon, and I mean, he's really been able to this year, you know, kind of prove and show really the kind of player that he is. And he's in a setting where he's really just been able to thrive.
Yeah.
You know, and I just love seeing it. That's especially with the conversation. You know, so much conversation around, you know, only certain positions or quarterbacks are going to be able to win MVP or you know, it's passing oriented league, whatever else the case may be. But yeah, so he's really just been able to thrive and show the kind of talent that he is, the kind of player, the impact you can have on a game, you know, and I think in a lot of ways you could say he's maybe kind of a throwback.
Definitely. And, you know, a guy that was probably headed for some degree of burnout in New York. I mean, you know, and people get mad in New York. I'm like, they did the best thing for him. Let him go.
Right,
because it's good for football that he's on a great team, and it's good for him. Because as you know, losing, not making the playoffs can be hard, you know, and so I was real happy to see him kind of get rescued, so to speak.
Right.
I know a big part of your career it was hard. After 91, you get to the NFC Championship, and then how many more times you get to the playoffs after that?
I mean, we got to the playoffs. We were always knocked out in the first round.
Yeah, first round.
Yeah. And, you know, I mean, looking back, honestly, Chris, I mean, I guess perspective kind of sometimes gives you a new look on things. But during the time, it was very frustrating.
Yeah.
Right. You know, because, you know, I saw how, like the Packers, for instance, you know, I felt like we were kind of neck and neck for a lot of years. And then they you know, they got Brett Favre. Then they went and acquired Reggie White, you know, and players like that. And that's when they just kind of slowly built a winner.
Right.
And I saw something similar with the Vikings. Of course, you know, we saw, and these are teams all in our division, right? And then we saw how the Bucks, you know, assembled a winner and when they won early 2000s Super Bowl. And so I realized that, you know, but again, at the time it was, you know, I didn't mind going to a team who hadn't won because it was our opportunity to establish that, right? And so I think to some degree we did that, but certainly felt like, you know, we didn't do all that we could have done.
Right.
You know, playing that 91 NFC Championship game, I assumed after that, you know, that I'd have a chance to play in a lot of NFC Championship games or playing a Super Bowl or whatever the case may be. And it's just amazing how the year, you know, the years slip by. And you just get knocked out of the playoffs. You and I were talking about Lomas Brown earlier. I think it was 95 when we made the playoffs. We first round game in Philly.
Yeah.
And we were heavy favorite to beat Philly.
Really?
And we go up there and we just and the reason I mentioned Lomas because Lomas did something out of character. He actually predicted we were going to win. Yeah. Right. He in the media, he's like, "Oh no, this is a sure win or whatever." And we go up there and their Phillies quarterback is Rodney Peete, who had been in Detroit, and they scored like 50 something points on us. And I don't know if you add up their whole, the total offensive scores for the whole season that they had 50, that season, but they had 50 on us in the playoffs, first round of the playoffs. I couldn't believe my eyes.
Yeah.
But just things like you just never know what's going to happen. That's why when you step on the field, when you get into the playoffs, you have to, take advantage of it. And understand, that it's not a given. Yeah. And so, but yeah, after that, and so yeah, there were those sort of ups and downs. And it was frustrating, but you know how it is, man. I mean, the game is competitive. There's no promises. Right. My good buddy Thurman Thomas, who plays for the Bills, they got their 4 straight years, and you could have bet the house, right? Before, you would have bet the house that at least one of those years they would have won.
Yeah. What's the probability of?
Yeah. What's the chances of going 4 times, right?
Yeah.
So it just shows you, It's a perplexing game in that sense, and it's just hard to believe, and that's why the current version of the Lions, have changed the conversation, because up until just recently, people would always refer back to the last playoff win
Right. Yeah.
for the Lions
Yeah.
was, against the Cowboys, that 1991 season.
Yeah, my goodness. And my dad, he went back and talked to a group of players, and I said, what'd you tell him? This was like 10, 15 years ago. And he goes, well, I told him, when I was a second-year player, whatever it was, I got in the league and we went to the Super Bowl and we won the thing. And we said, we're going to be here all the time. And do not miss the opportunity to be where your feet are, because it is not guaranteed. And he said, closest he ever got again was AFC Championship against the Bills one of those years. And they got, the way you talked about getting y'all's butts kicked by Philly, I think they lost like 51-3 up there in Buffalo. So you just never know. You just never know when it's the last time, right?
Absolutely. You don't know when it's the last time. You don't know when it's someone else's time to shine.
Yeah.
And I saw, when I think back, so some of my frustration is, I would say, tempered by the fact that, you look at the teams that won in the 90s. We talked about the Giants, right? We talked about, the Redskins, the Cowboys, the Packers, who went back to back, the Broncos. I'm missing a team or two, but some just really, like, if there weren't dynasties, they were close to it.
Yeah.
And so I don't know that we were ever better than any of those teams,
right,
honestly. And the best thing I can say about 91 is that, that Redskins team that beat up on us in the NFC Championship game went on to beat up on the Bills.
It does make you feel a little better, doesn't it?
Right, a
Makes
little bit.
better.
It just gives you a little perspective.
Yeah,
gives you perspective.
Who are the guys from that era that kind of got, for younger Lions fans who didn't grow up in the 90s and are enjoying this success now? Who are the guys that kind of paved the way outside of you that maybe people don't remember as well as they should from those teams?
From the Lions teams? Oh, you would have to look at a lot of people think about, like, the Coach Fonts. Wayne Fonts was the coach for a lot of those years. But we had great players, like, my oldest boy, he's 30. Yeah. So he was like 4 years old when I finished my career. So some of his favorite players still are, like, Herman Moore.
Yeah.
And guys like that. Scott Mitchell.
Yeah.
We had there was a quarterback named Eric Kramer who would play with us. Jerry Ball. I played with guys like my first year was Eric Hipples. Last year, Eric Hipple was quarterback that played many, many years with the Lions. I just missed Billy Sims by a few years, right? Billy got hurt in the mid-'80s. One of my childhood heroes, actually, from, he played at the University of Oklahoma, won the Heisman Trophy, but he was a great all-time Lion great. There's a lot of guys. Lynn Barney, Greg Landry, so I felt like a lot of great personalities, and people that, like, hardcore Lions fans remember. But we've had some really, really good players come through there. Herman used to do a charity basketball game on campus. I would go and play in.
So you've been there?
Yeah, I've been there.
No way.
Been there. Yeah, I've been there, and it was kind of cool because I think, like, Ralph Sampson.
Yeah, Ralph.
Sometimes.
Ralph's still around.
Yeah, he would.
Can't miss him.
Yeah, and I don't know if it was Stokes or somebody, one of those little point guards that was maybe on his team, but then John Crotty. I played against Crotty.
No way.
I played against Crotty.
No way.
Yeah, I played against Crotty in one of those charity games.
It's a nice place.
Burrows, it was it was fun time, man.
That's so great, man.
Yeah.
So, for you, how many did it end up being? 11 years, 10 years?
10.
10
years.
The thing I always think about is, as a kid, I'll almost never forget when I heard you were done. And, you always think about when you're as good as you are, you just enjoy being the best ever for as long as you can. But now that I'm a player and I played 11 years, I know what it feels like to feel like it's time, And I wonder for you, with doing a summer retirement kind of, when you knew it was time? Like, what were you doing when you knew it was time? Like, what was the thing that pushed you over the edge? Or was it like just a slow, all right, I'm good? Because the quote I have here is, my desire to exit the game is greater than my desire to stay in the game. And I might be paraphrasing, but was it just
that? Sounds right.
Was it that simple?
Right.
Were you just pragmatic about it?
No, it was tough, man. It was a tough decision, and probably the beginning of year 10, maybe some in before that, but beginning of year 10.
Yeah,
I'm thinking, man, I don't, I'm not too sure about this.
Yeah,
this kind of rebuilding, it's just not, and just that thing, that drive, that passion to like continuing to compete. And also maybe some of it will, is it even worth it, right?
Physically,
the picture doesn't, not physically,
yeah,
just the picture. Like, okay, construction of the team wise, like when a team is like rebuilding,
yeah,
right,
yeah,
and you're like, I mean, it's different. It's different if you're like in year one,
yeah, exactly.
Or just so that's a factor. That's a factor, but also just I put in 10 great years.
Yeah.
I know what it's like. I had a chance to live my dream, and just had burnout, had enough of it, you could say, and just as a player, because so I think that's where I was after year 10, and so it wasn't something just sudden. I think it was more gradual.
How many more you think you had physically in you?
Maybe 2 to 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe 2 to 3. If everything went perfect.
Yeah.
Obviously you never know in that game. If I could have brought over, maybe guys like Willie Rowe or something like that.
Get you a Willie Rowe for 2.
But yeah. So maybe 2 or 3. But I still felt good. I felt like I probably wasn't. I probably wasn't as fast, maybe, or jittery, at year 10. But I felt like maybe I was a smarter runner or more patient, and just knew the game a little better. And I think, like, conditioning wise, I think I was better conditioned, or at least knew how to get there at year 10 that I would have known in like year 1 and 2.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah. So I just think over that that last year or two, feeling like I don't know that how much longer I can really go for it, and stay in the game and do all the little things that it takes to be on top,
right,
and really have a chance, a purpose in being there to win, actually have a real chance of winning something.
If you're not sure, it's too hard. It's not like playing, no offense to like another sport, but like it's not like playing baseball.
Right, yeah.
Like people are hitting me.
Yeah.
Like, I gotta love this. I gotta love it with every ounce. You know what I mean? And
imagine that. I mean, guys like you, hitting the guy.
I don't know that I would have
like
been able
man.
to catch you, bro. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, well, that's the one thing you had going for you. I bet you were really hard to get a good shot on.
I tried to be.
Yeah.
I tried to be pretty hard. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I tried to at least make it a challenge. I mean.
Yeah. Well, who was the guy? Who were the guys that got the best shots on you? And was Chuck Cecil one of them? Did you play against Chuck?
Cecil, I did.
He was one of my coaches.
I did play against
in
Chuck.
St. Louis.
He used Chuck would light you up, man.
He used to headbutt me before the games. And one day, did you see him in the news recently? He's in Arizona. It's not a bad thing he's in the news for.
Right, yeah.
He's in Arizona. Crazy ass Chuck. Headbutting one of his players before the game.
Right, yeah.
He turns, he's got blood coming down his face. I said, the last time I saw that was literally when he headbutted me in St. Louis in 2012.
That's the Chuck that I know and love.
Yeah.
That's the Chuck that I know and love.
Did he come downhill or what?
Oh, man. Like a missile.
Yeah.
Like a missile, man. I mean, I don't, I'm sure Chuck got me a few times. I don't know if it was like a clean shot that he was known for.
Yeah.
But, you think about guys like, and like Ronnie Lott was kind of at the end of his career when I played against him. John Lynch played against him a ton. I mentioned Reggie White.
Yeah.
Reggie, he was almost unblockable.
Yeah.
When we played those guys, just a dominant force. Yeah. I mentioned LT and guys like that. I mean, we played against some some historically great defensive players. Charles Haley.
Yeah. And some personalities.
What's that?
And
Yeah,
some
absolutely.
personalities. Speaking of Charles Haley. And
Oh.
another one, I was wondering, John Randall, right?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Was he?
Wow.
Did he just go
John
the whole
Randall.
game? He just went the whole game? Because you got a front row seat to John Randall mic'd up, which to me, that's solid gold.
He said so much. John did. It's hard to even remember what was he actually saying. What was he talking about?
What are you saying?
But yeah, he was his yes, and I mean his. Of course, he had a motor. He didn't just have he wasn't his mouth just wasn't just running. I mean, the guy had a motor on him. He was coming every play.
Yeah.
He obviously is a Hall of Famer. And got so much out of that little package.
Yeah.
That he has, but a lot of, like you said, just a lot of great personalities and great players.
So when you go into the Hall of Fame, you're what, 36? Was that? Do you remember
how old I was?
Yeah, I saw in Wikipedia.
That's right. No,
so
that's
it must
right.
be true.
Math-wise, right, because that's about 20 years ago, 21 years ago, yeah.
And somebody who watched my dad go in, I was 13 when he did, and I know he waited a couple years, and, it was cool. He was at the time maybe early 40s, but I feel like y'all were so young. In a way, were you like, man, I wish I could have had more perspective to enjoy it, or were you like just ready for it and it's all the same for you getting in at 36, or if you had to wait a little longer? You know what I mean? If you were a little bit older, would you feel like you could savor it more? Or were you in a place in your life where you really could like stop and smell the roses?
No, I feel like I could stop and smell the roses. I was looking forward to it.
Yeah.
I was, I understood the significance of it and what it meant, not just to me, but my family, my dad, my high school coaches, and family, friends, whoever, my teammates. And then, just what the game has meant to me.
Right.
And just, being an early fan of the game. And like I was talking earlier about John Madden in the 1977 Super Bowl.
Yep.
And all those eras where I just followed the game religiously and followed the players and the impact it had just on my life. So, yeah, I mean, to me, I felt like the timing was perfect. And it's just one of those things where, it's kind of almost how you mark your life. How like you have your birthday. Going into the Hall of Fame is one of those things where, because I didn't play in the Super Bowl, right? So that's one of those things football-wise where it really just kind of puts a seal on the kind of career that I was able to have.
Who was the guy when you walked in that you're like, because my dad always talks about walking in and just like, there he is. Who was like the most impressive cat that you met at the Hall of Fame?
Oh man, I mean, it's tough to say, but
who do you look forward to cutting up with every year?
Well, I mean, a lot of the guys that I've kind of have had a chance to know, but like for me, I know my year that I went in, Tony Dorsett happened to be there, right, and so. I remember, watching him win the Heisman Trophy at the University of Pittsburgh and following him. And then guys like Roger Staubach, I mean, that was my formative years of watching the NFL. And, I mean, he was like the face of the NFL in the 70s, him and Terry Bradshaw,
CB.
Guys like that. And I wasn't a Dallas Cowboy fan.
Right.
But Roger was he was such a great competitor and winner, and he annoyed me so much as a kid. But as I grew older and realized like the journey that he traveled in the military, and just how great of a player he was, I had to just give him, so guys like that, for me, was where I had that kind of reaction.
I would imagine another one of those moments, like life-defining moments, would be 2,000 yards, that game. Like just hearing about it, people described you as not really wanting the accolades, not being concerned with them. You were all about being humble and working, but it sounded like you could enjoy that a little bit.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it was one of those things where I'm fortunate. I played with a group of guys. The center on that team is a guy named Kevin Glover. You know, I've been with him all my career, and that was my 9th season out of 10. And then there was a few other guys. You know, I'm not going to be able to name all the linemen, but there was a Mike Compton.
Yeah.
You know, there was a Ray Roberts.
I know Ray.
There was a Jeff Harding. You know Ray?
Yeah.
Yeah, UVA.
There you go, man. We're
UVA
everywhere.
guy. That's right. Yeah, another UVA guy.
Yeah.
There was a Larry Thorpe. There was, you know, and it was, you know, I mean, I wasn't, you know, I knew that I had come close to 2,000 yards earlier in my career, and I knew how, you know, it wasn't a given.
Yeah.
You know, and so, but I knew that, you know, my offensive linemen, you know, they wanted it. I knew obviously it was a great honor to be able to do it. I had started off really slow that season. You know, the first 2 games I had 50-something yards, and they were just those rumblings that, you know, have I lost a step, this and that and the other. And also, you know, just to be able to be mentioned with, you know, guys like Eric Dickerson, you know, and obviously OJ had been the first to do it, you know, and several have come after that. But no, it was a big deal. That was a big deal because of the timing of it in my 9th year, and also just because of what it means and how difficult it is, you know, and I talked about all those great defensive players that I played against. So, you know, to be able to do it, you know, against, you know, great defensive players and on this level was a big deal.
And against Bill Belichick.
I mean, the last 100 or so yards and change was against Bill.
Yeah, to finish it.
Bill Belichick and Bill Parcells. Actually.
The Bills.
Absolutely.
And
it wasn't looking good initially. It wasn't looking good at first.
No, it wasn't?
Absolutely.
That day started slow?
I mean, I don't know how many yards I had at halftime, but it wasn't that many.
I wonder, like, the night before a game, I don't know where your headspace was, but I kind of wonder, like, did you go to bed, like, with the number in your head? Like, were you like, hey, tomorrow's a big day, I'm going to do it? Or was it just kind of like, I'm going to put my head down and see what happens?
For me, it was more kind of see what happens, because we were also, you know, it's another one of those years where, you know, we were, I don't know, we probably finished 9-7 or something like that. You know, and we needed that win to go to the playoffs.
Right.
I think we were fighting for playoff positioning. So I think that was more the priority.
The main thing.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, you know, but obviously that was certainly something that we also wanted to accomplish. You know, so it would have been, you know, at the top of the list, not the top, the very top priority, but it would have been up there.
Did you sign your cleats or something for one of your buddies? And just I heard a story that after that game you signed your cleats and gave them to an O lineman instead of holding on to them. See, you don't even remember.
No.
That's how chill you are about.
Well, I know that. Well, the person who told me they had my cleats is Herman Moore. Yeah, Herman said he has.
How do you get a hold of
that game? Well, his locker wasn't that far from mine, so
he lifted those off you.
So he told me, he's like, you know, if you're ever wondering where your shoes are from that game, you know, I have a good idea.
That's so good.
Yeah.
If he ever gets in trouble, eBay, man. Hey, $1 million. So when you watch like something like Saquon this year and that last game, you know, it was a big buzz in the Eagles media and like all around the city, like, should he play? Should he not play? Should he rest? Should he not rest? Because he was chasing a different thing but a record, right? And I kind of wonder, as you watch considerations like that in today's game, are you like, come on, just play? Or do you understand like the new way of football, the way it's a little bit more like, hey, we're going to rest guys week 18?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was impressed that he didn't play. I was impressed. I mean, I was a little surprised because I you know, but I understood why he didn't.
Yeah.
I thought it was kind of cool that he didn't. You know, I saw the relief on Eric Dickerson's face.
Yeah.
I saw the relief, but no, I completely understood. I understood why, and you know, I thought it kind of a classy move.
Yeah.
But you know, hey, look, everyone's motivated by different things, and you know, he's had a fantastic historic season.
Yeah.
And obviously, the fact that we're here in New Orleans having this conversation, they had so much more to play for.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah. But it has a lot to do with him.
Absolutely.
The fact they're
absolutely
here.
Yeah. And so I think it was the right move.
Yeah. The other thing in today's game that's way different, not just like the load management aspect of it, guys getting a break, like new CBA we don't have pads on all week. We don't, it's just different. But one of the things that's way different I wanted you to take on was celebrations, because you're known for like, you're the ultimate hand the ball to the official guy, like show some class, act like you've been there, because you've been there a million times. You see celebrations now. Do you have fun with it? Can you allow yourself as a spectator to enjoy it?
Yes.
Yeah.
I've always enjoyed them.
Yeah.
I've always enjoyed them. I've always, even going back to like Billy White Shoes Johnson,
Yeah.
and guys like that, and the Smurfs, and list goes on
Icky.
and on. The Icky Shuffle. Yeah, Icky
Yeah.
Shuffle. There you go. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting just to see how far it's come.
Yes.
Some of the choreography.
The group celebrations.
Yeah, I was like, wow, okay.
We're running to the end zone after every turnover now. I'm tired.
Yeah, right.
We got to go back on defense.
I know. I mean, that's a lot of. It's like they put a lot of effort and practice into
Yeah.
that. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, so yes, to a degree, I think I can enjoy it.
Yeah.
Because generally you're celebrating because something good happens. But yeah, there probably should be. Some things are more worth celebrating than others. Sorry.
That's it. Yeah.
That's that's the point. But hey, that's how the game has changed and has evolved. And you want people to have fun.
Absolutely. Now you see guys pulling Sharpies out, and Joe Horn had a cell phone.
Yeah. And T.O. and all the T.O. stuff. Yeah, I mean,
popcorn. Zeke jumping out of the
Right,
Salvation Army bucket.
Yeah. I mean, they've taken
man.
these celebrations to a
Absolutely.
whole new level, man, for sure.
If you had to do one, would it just be a spike? If they just made you celebrate, they said, Barry, you get one more touchdown.
It would be a spike or a toss into the crowd.
Yeah.
A nice nice pass or throw up into the. Do they fine you for that anymore?
No, but the funniest thing that I feel like happens every season is somebody will like break a record, or it'll be their first touchdown. And, like Mike Evans threw Tom Brady's, what was that ball? Some record-breaking ball.
Right.
And then Mike Evans just chucked it into the
stands. He sure did.
So then they send somebody up
Right.
to be like, if it was the Eagles, they send up like Big Dom. And they say, hey, can you go negotiate, this touchdown ball back? So it's like, man, you can't even keep up now. You can't even keep up.
Yeah, I mean, Tom, you can't. You got to have that one.
You got to have
that one back.
Do you have besides like?
Tom has a nice collection too, by the way.
Oh,
so
yeah,
I mean, he's got a lot to celebrate.
I don't think he's losing sleep over one record. Besides like your gold jacket, do you have a piece of memorabilia that means a lot to you?
Yes, I mean the Heisman Trophy.
Yeah.
Just because, I just kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
I didn't have a ton of scholarships coming out of high school, and I just would have. I was on no one's list of preseason list of Heisman Trophy winners. A couple guys you probably recognize, Troy Aikman and Rodney Peete were the two front runners that year.
Yeah.
And guys like that was Deion Sanders' senior year and stuff like that. And I had the previous year, I had done great as Thurman Thomas's backup, and then full time like kick returner, and had made it All-American as a kick returner, and I didn't know that it could get better than that for me, honestly.
Well, I heard a quote from Barry Switzer, and you might know this quote, but he was like, "Hey guys, do not hurt Thurman. You won't touch Barry." He's like, please, whatever you do, tackle him, but do not hurt him.
I don't know if Barry ever said that, but that's what I've heard.
Yeah,
through
the grapevine,
and that's a great compliment.
Yeah.
But anyway, so to answer your question, though, winning the Heisman, and just the way my life changed. After that, and just again being a football fan and watching all those great Heisman Trophy winners before me. I mentioned guys like Roger Staubach, but even like in my more formative years, like Earl Campbell, and Billy Sims, and Marcus Allen and Tony Dorsett, and even like Benny Testaverde, Doug Flutie, and so I'm that guy sitting there watching this, every year and cheering on my favorite players and to find myself in that position,
Yeah.
you know, as a junior in college, was just beyond. It was beyond anything I could have ever
It's
imagined.
like another fraternity. You know,
Yeah, absolutely.
you're in the Hall of Fame. It's like a brotherhood, and
No, it is.
you got to. And I was sitting with a Heisman Trophy winner on the plane here randomly, George Rogers.
Oh, okay, yeah, Big George, yeah, Big George.
He was
absolutely.
the nicest dude in the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was him and Charles Woodson, and then me and 1C. I was like, hey, I feel a little out of place here. These guys are amazing.
No, you're right at home.
No,
Come on, man.
But he was the nicest dude in the world.
Yeah, he is. Big George. Yep.
You know, the other thing that I really got a kick out of was like, your dad seemed like such just an amazing character. Like he just seemed like, you know, from everything people talk about in the documentary and the whole thing. But the one thing, wasn't he a big OU fan?
Yes.
So did he like burn all his stuff after they didn't offer you, or like?
No.
He kind of just played both sides of it once you left Stillwater.
No, he didn't play. He never played both sides of it. He was, you know, like he would always say, you know, this will tell you a little bit about him. He was like, hey, look, man, I was an OU fan before you were born. I was an OU fan before you got to Oklahoma State. You know, I'm always going to be an OU fan. But I hope, you know, I wish you well.
Hey,
so, that was my dad. You know,
so funny.
Yeah, that was my dad, man. You know, so there was no bigger, more important person in the world for him than Barry Switzer, the longtime coach of the Oklahoma Sooners. You know, that was his team, and you know, so there was nothing anyway. So yeah, and it only got really uncomfortable like my junior year when I'm in the Heisman Trophy race.
Yeah.
And you know, we're about to play University of Oklahoma.
Yep.
You know.
Yep.
And he's going on and on about how much of a fan he is, and he's not pulling for Oklahoma State.
Wild. Talk about a guy with loyalty, though.
Oh yeah. He absolutely loyal.
Yeah.
Absolutely loyal. Yep. You know. So, but hey, look, that was him. I always knew what to expect.
Yeah.
You know. But yeah, that was a little uncomfortable. And I'm just unfortunate we couldn't beat him that year.
What was it? I mean, you know, like I got a special relationship with my dad, you know, the whole thing, and he helped me so much coming up and teaching me the value of hard work and all the, you know, the stuff that gets you through the tough days. And it sounded like your dad was just such a force in your life, man. Like just such an awesome dude. And
Absolutely.
Like what were the lessons that he taught you that stuck out the most when you were coming up?
Well, one, I was fortunate enough to spend just a ton of time with him.
Yeah.
Just because of the kind of work that he did. Like, you know, he was kind of a handyman. So, you know, from the time I was, you know, I don't know, teenager, then I would go with him a lot of times, and you know, have to help him out, do whatever, you know. And so obviously that was the lesson in and of itself. You know, just seeing how he worked, seeing how I had to work, put forth effort, you know, and so but I mean, you know, he was a type. I mean, there's so much I learned from him, but just, you know, hey, look, be confident. He loved himself, you know, and he valued, you know, and I really understood the value of the relationship of being a parent, the pride. He took pride in being a parent.
Yeah.
You know, he took pride in it, and he made it, you know, clear that this is important.
Yeah.
What I'm doing here. You know,
intentional about it.
Oh yeah,
it's like every day is an opportunity to teach your kids something, or you know, like you know, just everything's an opportunity, and showing them love every day. You're just building them up, and you're watching this person grow, man.
Right.
This is cool. And you got 4 now, right?
Absolutely. And he was pretty clear just about, hey, look, you know, I'm your dad. You know, I'm not always going to be your friend.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's not always going to be comfortable.
Yeah. Were you able to take that into your fatherhood experience? Because I mean, to some degree. I want to be my kid's friend.
Right. Yeah.
But I know there's times where you got to be the heavy, and you know, another thing.
I don't think not to the degree that he did. No.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, but I maybe, you know, but yeah, because that was a different day, different time, whatever.
Oh, no question.
But but I certainly just being present and
Yeah.
trying to have a good relationship and understanding that that to some degree, my twist on it is it does become kind of a partnership, right? And you are, even though you are the adult, you still have to serve the needs of your kids. At least that's kind of how I see
Yep.
it. Because it wasn't just his influence; it was my mom's influence.
Yeah.
She was much more softer, and completely different
Yeah.
from him. My dad took all the credit for everything.
Yeah.
Even though my mom deserved a lot of it, which
Yeah.
was just kind of funny, and she, she was never looking for any pats on the back or any credit or anything like that. But I kind of had my, I would kind of annoy him because I had my personality is more like my mom's.
Yeah.
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 So
Me
it
and my
was just
mom
that
are super tight too.
What's that? Oh yeah.
So
So
it's
there was
like-
that dynamic. So it was, it was funny. It's kind of funny to look back on.
Well, you having 4 kids, and I know you still got one of your boys is still playing. A couple of them still playing. One going to Toledo, right?
Yes, he's going to
It's
Toledo.
no secret.
One of
So
university,
we got another ball player coming up. You have a son that is still in high school playing. It's that same guy.
The
right?
one
Yeah.
in high school is
Yeah.
going to Toledo.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I have one at Michigan State playing basketball.
Michigan State playing hoops. So as athletes, like you understood the pressure probably that came with being your son, right? Like, was that a hard thing to prepare them for the spotlight? Having been a second generation guy and knowing some of the pressure and, the people that might want to see you fail, might think you have it easy, all that stuff. How did you go about preparing them for being your son?
Well, I think what I try to do is just kind of make them aware of, that there was a such thing and there were expectations that people may have. I mean, it's not coming from me, or it's not necessarily coming from mom or whoever else, but just out there.
Yeah.
And the thing that's interesting to me is that, it really a lot of times comes down to the personality of the kid as well.
Right.
Because, I know my youngest son, he's looked forward to the attention and, the comparisons and all those kinds of things, where some kids, that get to be a little uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And he's embracing, the whole world of the NIL thing and whatever comes with it.
That's a pretty good world.
Yeah, absolutely, it is.
We
It's
could
a
have
crazy
you
world.
could have made a lot of money.
Oh my God, yeah. So and even it's interesting. My son, who plays basketball at Michigan State, he's a walk on.
Yeah.
But even he's been able to enjoy NIL, and
Yeah.
I'm like, how is this possible, man?
That's
How
amazing.
in the world are you benefiting from this? So I don't know whether to celebrate or to be jealous or what.
What was your relationship like with the media? Because people say like, hey, you weren't like ever a jerk about it, but you just didn't love the attention. Was that it? Like, or you just didn't want to draw attention to yourself?
I think it wasn't the most comfortable thing for me,
Yeah.
just because it's not. Well, again, remember, I mean, it's not that I grew up like in the 1800s or something like that, but I feel like, I grew up really not in the ESPN generation.
Yeah.
I didn't have cable and ESPN. Well, ESPN wasn't what it is today, right?
Yeah.
There wasn't 24-hour sports. Sports media wasn't really a thing.
No podcast.
I mean, there were guys like Howard Cosell,
Yep.
who were like journalist personalities and things like that. Al Michaels, but you didn't really see a lot of and hear like interviews and things like that, other than guys like Muhammad Ali, big athletes, that sort of thing. So it wasn't even something I was aware of or understood that it was like a real thing that and so. My first real introduction to it was like going to college and Coach Jones had a little weekly show that he would do, but it wasn't anything like national, But I had heard of like, okay, there's like the New York sports media or the Philadelphia sports media or whatever, but it wasn't something I had really interacted with, right? So when I was going through the Heisman Trophy, sort of the Heisman Trophy voting and all of that, then that was my first introduction to. Okay, wow. I mean, these are some tough questions, because I wasn't sure, like at that time, I wasn't sure if I was going to stay in school or come out. And these guys were,
Really?
They were really like insistent, and just, and sometimes I felt like just rude,
Yeah.
I just wasn't used to dealing with
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
But anyway, so it took a while just to get used to, that whole side of it,
Yeah.
and I feel like it's just blown up and expanded, even since then. But and no one, I don't think, well, maybe some people could have predicted how big it would become.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just really wasn't a part of my consciousness growing up as a football player.
Right.
That was a part of it, and
Right.
that would be a part of it in the way that it is.
Yeah.
So it's a different world now.
No
Right?
question.
Kids understand it, that no, that's a part of it. You can actually be a part of it yourself, have your own voice and
that's
things
the
like
good
that.
thing.
So yeah, that's the beauty of it. That's the
We can
beauty of
get
it.
in on the action. 'Cause
Absolutely.
They're
Yeah.
all making money off us.
Right.
And there's
Absolutely.
nothing wrong with it's free market.
Right.
A lot of people love the game, but like it's fun to be able to leave the game and the game still pays you if you'll work hard at it.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And to get to have conversations like this, so many guys you see at the Super Bowl, you're like, let's just sit down and have a chat, man. And I think it's real cool. I got a bunch of friends in the media now, but as a player though, and I played in a small market in St. Louis, I would not have been ready for like the Philadelphia market, the media market. It's just different.
Right.
Like, I don't know if Detroit was like that. Like, was Detroit?
Yeah, it was like big.
Yeah.
It's like a big market media place.
Yeah.
For sure. And you have those guys like Mitch Albom.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Who are
Yeah.
nationally known and people like that. So it's pretty demanding. And you get a real sense of like, sort of big city media, and not everybody's your friend.
Yeah.
You have critics and things like that, and it's a real education, but in my formative years, that was not a thing.
Right.
There was no such thing as that.
Right.
So there was no, like shows like Sports Reporters, whatever, where you're talking about sports during the middle of the week, you just, didn't exist. So it's kind of cool to see how much it's grown, how much of the action, athletes are getting in on, so it's definitely evolved.
What's your prediction for Sunday? Like, where do you lean on the game? Speaking
I'm leaning.
now that you're sports media sitting here with me. What's your prediction?
I'm leaning. It's tough to bet against Taylor Swift. Tough to bet against her.
I know. I found that out last week. I lost a little bit on the Bills.
Oh, you did? Okay. Yeah. She's tough to go against, man. But I think let me go with Saquon.
Yeah.
Let me go. I feel like the Eagles might have more playmakers.
Yep.
They may have more playmakers.
Yeah.
And I know. I mean, I cringe, and hesitate. Picking against the heavy favorite. I guess they're the favorite.
Yeah.
Obviously they're chasing history. And I'm pretty sure the Eagles are, they're more aware of that than anyone else, and they want to do something about it. Maybe they have more motivation.
Yeah.
This time around.
Yeah.
Not that you need more playing in this game.
Right. I always love that question. Like, who's more, who's more? I'm like, I didn't think I could be any more motivated. It's the damn Super Bowl.
So I've and obviously the Eagles, they've won it before.
Yeah.
And so anyway, so I'll go with Saquon and the Eagles.
The impressive thing about the Chiefs to me is you probably remember in '91, like how long that season felt. Like going all the way into, February almost.
Mm-hmm.
And when I finally got to do that, I was exhausted the next year. It took me a little bit to get back on the horse. Those guys, doing that year after year, it's like the New England thing.
Mm-hmm.
The most impressive thing to me is they did that for almost 2 decades.
Right. Yeah.
Like there's guys on those teams that played extra seasons.
Absolutely. When you add it up, when you do the math and the games, because the off season's already short.
I know.
Right? It's already short.
Yeah.
And it's much shorter for those guys. And maybe I guess it's a benefit because you're continuing to play the game.
You never stop.
But at the same time, just, it's not like you get a year off. You get for 4 or 5 months, whatever it is.
Yeah.
You don't always heal up from whatever it is that was bothering you the year before necessarily. But we've had a chance to watch modern day dynasty. I mean, I would not have predicted that this soon after the Patriots dynasty that we'd see what we're seeing from the Chiefs. I mean, it's amazing because growing up in Kansas, right, and seeing, the Chiefs, they never won anything. It was always the Raiders or the Broncos or whoever else from that conference or that division. So yeah, there's a lot of happy Chiefs fans around there.
So I just heard this story when you had a chance to, I think maybe your rookie year, you had a chance to lead the league in rushing, and they were like, "Hey, go back in there." I don't know if it was Wayne Fonts at the time or
Wayne Fonts,
but he was like, "Go back in there and get this title."
Right.
And you said, "No, we've won the game." I'm paraphrasing, but my work's done. The guy who was leading the league in rushing, do you remember who it was?
Yeah, Christian Okoye.
So did that have anything to do with it?
No.
Yeah, it was just whoever it was. You just
yeah. No, I mean, we were. I feel like the last few weeks of the season we were kind of battling back and forth, but that was my rookie year, and had a really good game that last game of the year, pretty much wrapped up rookie of the year, offensive rookie, whatever it was, and I guess Christian had played earlier that day.
Yeah, that's
right.
That's
Christian
what
had played earlier that day.
So people are calling and saying, "Hey, it's wrapped up."
Right.
And now we can just track it on our phones.
Right. And so they, at some point at the end of the game, they said, "Oh, you need." And I had I don't know, several touchdowns, over 100 yards, and at some point they said, and we were up by a lot. The game was over pretty much. And so I was like, "Well, you need so many yards to get the rushing record." Yeah, something like
10 yards.
Yeah, and I was like, "Nah, I'm good, man. Let's."
You like saying
wrap,
I'm good,
man.
huh? It feels good to say I'm good.
But you know what? Yeah, I mean, I don't. I mean, just the competitive part of the game was over.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I felt like being second to Christian Okoye wasn't such a bad thing, and I still feel the same way today.
I want to ask you a couple non-football questions before we get you out of here. The Pistons were in Detroit, and they were dominant when you were there, right? You were on the tail end of that run, late 80s or early 90s. Mm-hmm. Did dudes hang out off the field? Did you see those guys out and about, and were you able to go to a bunch of those games? Was it, now you see the Eagles are all courtside at the Sixers. Like the big thing is we go to the other team's game. Was it like that in Detroit at that time? It had to be pretty fun.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I love the Pistons. Loved Isaiah Thomas.
Yeah.
Joe Dumars, Bill Laimbeer. Those guys. I just love the NBA because I just remember. I remember that's the first time I met Larry Bird. Yeah. After one of the games. And just that generation of NBA. And then obviously the Pistons won. They won back-to-back titles in that time, and then a few years later, the Chauncey Billups, Rip Hamilton version as well.
I love that team.
Yeah, I mean, I watched those guys absolutely. Yeah,
and there was
Larry Brown.
There was no like superstar. I felt like like they were just all like dogs, dude.
Right, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, Larry he pulled it together that year. So I didn't hang out and see a lot of those guys a lot. Away from that setting. Yeah. But I mean, I know they were out there, doing whatever. Yeah. It was their town. I let them have it.
It was their town,
So, but it was definitely cool. I went to a lot of games back then. So,
Barry, I appreciate the time, man. This has been a lot of fun. Enjoyed it. Always love watching you play, and thanks for stopping by our Airbnb, man.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. I enjoyed it, and let's do it again soon.
I'd love to.
All right?
I'd love to, man.